This
separate.
conference will now be recorded.
So, but here, integration metabolism. So here we are going to study the metabolism all together. So the coordination, here we'll come to know the coordination between carbohydrate, lipid and protein metabolism. So in textbook, so it's a chapter wise manner. Carbohydrate metabolism separate, lipid metabolism, protein metabolism separately we are dealing. But when it comes to the in our body, the metabolism takes place in with one coordination. There is a coordination between these three metabolism. So that's what it's called integration of metabolism. Okay, fine. So now let us start with the so the coordination between three metabolisms is nothing but is integration of metabolism. First, let us see the what is metabolism. So metabolism is nothing but sum of the all the chemical transformation takes place in a cell or organism across a series of enzyme catalyzed reaction that constitutes a metabolic pathway. So as all of you aware that the so take for some simple glucose. So from glucose you are getting pyruvate, and from pyruvate you are getting acetyl CoA and lactate like. So there is a sequence, the transformation of energy, chemical transformation takes place in stepwise manner. So and each one is catalyzed by the enzyme, and a series of enzyme catalyzed reactions. It's not simple step. The metabolism, to say that metabolism is not a simple step. It takes place in a series of chemical catalyzed reactions. So this constitutes the metabolism. And why this is important? Why this metabolism is important? So the metabolism, these reactions, all these are because it takes place mainly in the living organisms. So this is required for the necessary to maintain the life. So without metabolism, it's very difficult to survive. So take for example, our daily our body needs 160 grams of the glucose required. So out of 160 grams, from where we are getting this glucose? From glucose, we are getting it from the diet. So out of 160 grams, 150 grams itself, our brain needs 120 grams of the glucose itself. It's required for our brain. So I'm going to introduce the what is anabolism, what is catabolism. Anabolism is nothing but simple substance. Okay. Simple substances are synthesized into a complex material or living tissue. Simple substances are synthesized into the complex material or living tissues. So take for example body proteins. So proteins, so these proteins are required for the body growth. So how these proteins are synthesized in our body? The proteins are synthesized from the amino acids. From where did you are getting these amino acids? What's the source for the amino acid? Amino acid we are getting from the dietary proteins. So what's the importance of anabolism? Anabolism is nothing but your body is building or repairing muscles, because this is a continuous process. Building and repairing is a continuous process. This is the state in which your body experiences considerable muscle growth. See, for the growth you require the anabolism. Then what is catabolism? Catabolism is nothing but metabolic breakdown of the complex molecule into simple ones. So which is very much required for the energy release. How this energy is released? By breakdown of the complex molecules. So this catabolism occurs during the intense exercise. Okay, so an extended catabolic state will lead to the existing muscle being used to repair newly torn muscle. So it's not. So this is the catabolism is a continuous process. That's why we need to take all the proteins, carbohydrate, and lipids in equal quantity. So as all of you aware that we are taking proteins as such in the diet and polysaccharides and fats. The proteins are degraded into amino acids, and from polysaccharides you are getting simple sugars, and fats you are getting fatty acids and glycerols. So these macromolecules we are consuming the large macromolecules, and these large molecules are broken down to the simple subunits. So this is our internal machine. So they just like machine there, our body requires their internal system, enzymes, hormones. So many things are involved in here. So an excess of any food type, whether it's a protein or fat or carbohydrate, it is only two stories. It is either converted to the glucose or fat for storage. So excess you take more than the requirement. If you take more diet, the diet is converted to the simple molecules. First, it is converted to simple molecules. From the simple molecules, the biosis of the glycogen and fat takes place, and these are the glycogen, fat are the reserve source of energy. So, take from the glucose. From glucose, two fates are there. So, glucose converted to the glycogen, and this glucose converted to fatty acid. From this fatty acid, the biosis of this triacylglycerol takes place. So, from this amino acid, whatever the amino acid you are taking from this amino acids, the biosis of the proteins takes place. Biosis of the proteins takes place. And if you take 70 kg body weight person, so 70 kg body weight person contains 15 kgs of triglycerol and 6 kgs of proteins and point two kgs of glycogen is present. And we can this 15 kgs of body fat, it liberates nearly approximately 1,35,000 kilocalories of energy, and the 6 kgs of protein releases the 24 kilocalories of energy, whereas the 0.2 kilos releases the 800 kilocalories of the energy. And during this, you see this one energy stores in a few energy stores. So take for example in 70 kg body weight person, so we can survive on this body fat for nearly 40 to 40, 34 days, 34 days we can survive. 11 days continuous walking, 11 days this fat is survive. We can survive on 11 days. It is sufficient. Our reserve source of fat, which is stored in the form of rice as well. Whereas for long marathons, so 3 days sufficient. 3 days it will work out. This fat, whatever reserve fat is there, that is work out for the 3 days. Then coming to the methyl glycogen and the liver glycogen. Methyl glycogen, 350 grams of methyl glycogen is there. So we can survive starvation. We can survive on 14 hours, or it will work out. Continuously, if we walk, our all muscle glycogen will deplete within 5 hours, and in the marathon 70 minutes. Then coming to the liver glycogen, so liver glycogen, it won't contribute to the blood sugar level. So, but this liver glycogen, so sorry, methyl glycogen won't contribute the blood sugar level, whereas the liver glycogen it contributes the blood sugar levels. So this liver glycogen we can serve on 3.5 hours, and whereas walking it comes to 70 minutes, whereas marathon 18 minutes. Then coming to the extracellular glucose, so only 20 grams is present. So we can depend on this starvation, it will work out for only 40 minutes, whereas walking 15 minutes, whereas marathon 4 minutes. So our body proteins need approximately 6 kgs of 6 kgs of body proteins are there. So during starvation, it will work out. Our body can survive on 15 days, and walking 5 days, and marathon on 20. So so overall, you come to know that the fat, which is the reserve storage form of energy, and approximately 1.5 kgs of fat, 900 to 1.5 kgs of 9 kgs to 15 kgs of fat is present, and this fat we can survive on the 34 days. So that's why this is the fat is the reserve storage form of the energy. So now in this catabolic schematic representation, now you are going to see the how energy is liberated. What's the basic mechanisms involved? So as all of you know that our diet contains proteins, polysaccharides, and fat. This is the main ingredient of our diet is the protein, polysaccharide, and fat. So from proteins, amino acids, from polysaccharides, it splits into the forms of monosaccharides, and from fat you are getting the fatty acids. So altogether amino acid, monosaccharide, fatty acid. So ultimately it will get the acetyl CoA, that is the ultimate product of this protein pause and fat metabolism. So this acetyl CoA enters into citric acid cycle. In citric acid cycle, generation of the NAD takes place, and this NAD enters into the NAD enters into electron transport chain, where the oxidative phosphorylation takes place and the ATPs are released. So ultimately, the purpose of this taking food is the liberate the energy, and then that energy also in the form of ATP energy is liberated. And this metabolism is a continuous process. This metabolism is a continuous process with thousands of reactions which occur simultaneously in the cell. In the living cell, it occurs simultaneously in the living cells. So carbohydrate, lipids, and proteins. So for sake of convenience, this takes place in but sake of convenience, these carbohydrate, lipid, and protein metabolism takes place separately, but it actually takes place simultaneously in intact animal and are closely interrelated to the one another. So now in coming slides, you are going to see how these metabolisms are interrelated. The metabolic process involving these three major food nutrients and their interrelationship can be broadly divided into the three stages. So in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Stage 1 is nothing but hydrolysis. So hydrolysis of the macromolecules, the proteins, carbohydrates, lipids. So it splits into the amino acids, glucose, and lipids into fatty acids. Okay. So from amino acids and glucose, and you are getting pyruvate and the acetyl CoAs, and fatty acid degradation, it undergoes a beta oxidation, you will get the acetyl CoAs, and the overall the pyruvate to the acetyl CoA, and overall in first stage hydrolysis. So amino acids, glucose, fatty acid, and second stage. So the second stage is nothing but this is called a preparative stage, where the conversion of subunits to the acetyl CoA, and production of the small amount of energy, 80% NAD. So conversion of the subunits to the acetyl CoA. So this pyruvate to acetyl CoA, and liberation a little bit energy during the glycolysis process. Okay, so this ATPs are released, and during the breakdown of the fat, NADH is released. Okay, so this acetyl CoA, this is not a preparatory stage. So in third stage, that is nothing but oxidative stage. So in second stage, what will happen? Again, the liberation of ATPs takes place in Krebs cycle, and NADH, NADH, and FADH are released. And in third oxidative phase stage, in the presence of oxygen, the acetyl CoA is oxidized to the carbon dioxide water by common final pathway of TCA cycle, considering ATP produced in this process. So now you know that during the amino acid from the amino acid, ammonia is released. So ammonia is a waste product. Ammonia is converted to urea. Urea is acidated, and ultimately the water molecules are releasing and carbon dioxide releasing. So these are nothing but these are the waste products. So in stage process, stage 1, stage of hydrolysis, stage 2, preparatory stage, stage 3, oxidative stage. In 3 phases, the liberation of in third phase, the liberation of the So the finally the molecules are enters in the electron transport chain and ATPs are released, and this ammonia is converted to the ammonia, is converted to urea, and urea is the waste product of water molecules, carbon dioxide. All these are takes place. This is the another representation. This proteins, carbohydrates, and fatty acids. Okay, from this proteins you are getting the nitrogen. Okay, so nitrogen is in the form of ammonia is released, and this body tissue proteins. Okay, so from the tissue proteins it undergoes degradation. From the tissue proteins, proteins or tissue proteins it undergoes degradation, and from this also from this amino acid ammonia is released. So this ammonia is undergoes urea cycle, and urea cycle citric acid connection is there again. There is a link between the urea cycle and the citric acid cycle, and from the glucose the excess amount of glucose converted to glycogen. Okay, from the glycogen undergoes the the glycogenolysis and glucose 6 phosphate liberation of glucose 6 phosphate takes place, and in the well-fed state, the glucose 6 phosphate is converted to the glycogenesis takes place. Okay, so the glucose 6 phosphate via the gluconeogenesis, it is converted to gluconeogenesis. You will get the pyruvic acid from pyruvate to lactic acid, and this pyruvic acid enters the acetyl CoA, and this acetyl CoA again you are getting from the degradation of the beta oxidation of fatty acid. What are ultimately the acetyl CoA enters into the citric acid cycle. From the citric acid cycle it enters into the electron transport chain. In electron transport chain, there is a generation of the consumption of the oxygen and release of the water molecule, and at the same time liberation of the energy takes place in the form of ATP. See, overall, if you see the overall, what are the major pathways? Major principal metabolic pathways of intermittent metabolism. One is the glycogenesis, gluconeogenesis, lipogenesis, synthesis of fatty acids, and ketogenesis, and protein synthesis, urea synthesis. Okay, so this is the major genesis. Genesis means birth, birth, the glycogen generation of the synthesis of the glycogen. All genesis takes place here during the glycogenolysis, during start glycogenolysis, glycolysis, lipolysis, beta oxidation, ketone bodies degradation, proteolysis, and degradation of amino acids. These are all these are all takes place during the starvation conditions. So along with the citric acid cycle, respiratory cycle, so these two are the very important cycles. These are the common principal metabolic pathways of the intermediate metabolism. These are the principal metabolic pathways. Okay. So now, so this the liberation of energy. So how the body makes the survival during the starvation. How the body reserves the source during the falconry condition. Again, these metabolisms are controlled and coordinated by the hormones. So thyroid, parathyroid, and the adrenal glands, pancreas. This again, the pancreas is involved, and kidneys, testes, and ovary. All the hormones are involved in this metabolism. So at the same time, because you know that the hormones are works under the control of this nervous system. So that's why this is the neuro and endocrine system both synergetically both works together, and ultimately acts on the body metabolism, and ultimately acts on this organs, and where inside the organs where the metabolism takes place. So take for example, best example, the pancreas. So whenever the blood sugar levels are rises, the pancreas is stimulated and pancreas liberates the insulin. So like this insulin again, insulin facilitates it is a hypoglycemic hormone, it decreases the blood sugar level. So again, the release of insulin and consumption of sugars, and again during the starvation, the mobilization of energy from the mobilization of the reserve sources from the different organs. All these are works under control of the nervous system. So both the endocrine system, nervous system, both acts on this, and the metabolism takes place in the intermediate metabolism takes place at two levels. One is at cellular level, and second is at the tissue or organ level. So we have to see both organ level as well as at the cellular level. So here the organisms possess variable energy demands. Hence the supply is also equally variable. The consumed metabolic fuels may be oxidized to carbon dioxide and water, or stored to meet the energy requirements as per the body needs. ATP serves as the energy currency of the cells. Ultimately, ATP serves as the energy currency of the depending upon the need. So sometimes our body needs more energy, and sometimes the body does not require that much energy. So that's why during welfare state, the energy is stored in the form of the energy is stored in the form of in the energy is stored in the storage form. So whenever need arises, the mobilization of the metabolic fuels takes place, and these metabolic fuels are oxidized to carbon dioxide and water. So now it takes place of glucose. We are taking starch in our diet. The starch is splits into the starch is splits into the you are getting the disaccharides and glycogen. We are taking the starch is a major diet and followed by glycogen, disaccharides, and we are consuming glucose, fructose, and galactose. All we are taking. So whatever you are taking, that is stored in the form of glycogen. Ultimately, that is stored in the form of glycogen, and this glycogen is distributed and utilized. The glycogen is mainly stored. Glycogen is stored only in the liver and muscle, and whereas this free glucose is distributed and utilized by the entire body. So now, see this blood sugar level. So how the sugar levels are maintained? So the sugar levels are maintained by the two Turkish enzymes, Turkish hormones. One is insulin, and is the major hormone is the glucagon. At the same time, growth hormone, adrenaline, and glucocorticoids and growth hormone. These are also involved in the blood sugar level maintenance, but only one hormone which lowers the blood sugar level is the insulin. So this glucagon, these other hormones are the this work against insulin, that's known as the anti-insulin hormones. Only there are otherwise hyperglycemic hormones. So insulin is the only one hormone which decreases the blood sugar level. So whereas the glucagon, growth hormone, cortisol, epinephrine, these are all the anti-insulin or counter-regulatory hormones which increases the blood sugar level. See, take for example, so now we are going to discuss about the insulin. So increased blood glucose level. Okay, so whenever this glucose levels are increases, so this increased glucose level causes the insulin to release. So insulin, the pancreas releases the you see all of the whether either the islets of Langerhans releases the hormone insulin. So this causes the liver to release the so this the insulin is released and decreases the blood sugar, lowers the blood glucose level. So now under whenever sugar levels are low, so there is a need because as already said, our brain needs 120 grams of the glucose is required to our brain. The brain continuous supply of the glucose required to our brain. So whenever the sugar levels are decreases, low blood sugar level. So low blood sugar level causes the pancreas to release the glucagon. So now the glucagon is released from the pancreas, and this glucagon causes the liver to release the glucose into the blood, and liver the glucose into the blood. So under the influence of insulin, so insulin it takes the glucose from the blood, and the glucose, whatever the glucose liberated glucose stored in the form of glycogen in the liver. So whenever need arises, this glucagon acts on this pancreas and causes the liver to release the glucose into the blood. So these are that's why this glucagon is a counter-regulatory hormone. And how this glucagon decreases the blood sugar level? Because as all of you noted, there are several glucose transport because there are several glucose transporters have been identified in various tissues, and this especially except glucose transporter 4, rest of transporters need not require insulin. Only glucose transporter 4 only, it's insulin stimulated uptake of the glucose takes place. So insulin is required for the uptake of the glucose, the heart, the skeletal muscle, adipose tissue. So whereas for entry of the glucose into the brain tissues, kidneys and placenta RBC, so whereas glucose transporter 1 is present, so this is need not require any insulin, and whereas glucose transporter 2 and here the liver, pancreatic beta cells and small intestine kidneys contains the glucose transporter 2, and here there is a rapid uptake and release of the glucose takes place, whereas brain, kidney, and placenta, there is uptake of glucose takes place. So that's what I am repeating once again, except glucose transporter 4. So rest of glucose transporter 5 is present in small intestine, whereas a special glucose transporter, small intestine glucose transporter is 1. So it is present in SGLT, that is familiarly known as SGLT. So which is present in small intestine kidney. So which need not require any glucose transporter. So that's why except to heart skeletal muscle adipose tissue is exclusively dependent upon the insulin. Rest of the transporter need not require any insulin. Then what's the role of insulin in our body? So as all of you know, that the insulin is required for the entry of the glucose into the adipose tissue, skeletal muscle, heart. So only these enzymes, this insulin hormone depends on the only this heart muscle, skeletal muscle, adipose tissue depends on the insulin for entry of the glucose into the heart, skeletal muscle, adipose tissue requires insulin. Whereas now once this glucose enters into the cell, what's the role of insulin? So insulin fastens the glycolysis. So insulin is required for the glycogen synthesis. As all of you know, the glycogen synthesis takes place in the liver and muscle. So insulin facilitates the protein biosynthesis. So insulin is required for the uptake of the ions, especially potassium and phosphate ions. So this is very required. And whereas the insulin stops the gluconeogenesis, glycogenolysis, lipolysis, ketogenesis, proteolysis, all these are stopped under the influence of the insulin. Whereas the insulin facilitates the uptake of the glucose in muscles and adipose tissue, and insulin facilitates the glycolysis and glycogen synthesis, protein synthesis, and one more thing is missing, that is the lipogenesis and uptake of the ions. So that's why in well-fed state, what will happen? Insulin levels are very high. In well-fed state, insulin dominates. So insulin it increases the glucose oxidation and glycogen synthesis, fat synthesis, protein synthesis. All these are facilitated by the insulin. Insulin favors this oxidation, synthesis, fat synthesis, protein synthesis. All these are so all these pathways are activated by the insulin. So now, see again the same. I am going to show in different representations. So when our blood sugar level is very high, the insulin facilitates entry of the glucose into the liver, and glycogen storage occurs, and gluconeogenesis depletes, and glycogenolysis depletes, and the glucose is uptake and storage takes place in the form of glycogen. So whenever the blood sugar levels are very low, and glucagon under influence of glucocorticoids, what will happen? The breakdown of glycogen takes place, and the gluconeogenesis of glucose from non-carbohydrates takes place, and the glycogen synthesis does not occur. Only the breakdown of the glycogen only occurs. So that's why in fasting state there is no role of glucagon. Only in well-fed state, there is no role of glucagon. Like this, in fasting state, there is no role of insulin. Only in the fasting state, glucagon dominates. Whereas in well-fed state, insulin dominates. Whereas in fasting state, glucagon dominates. So this glucagon favors the glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis and ketogenesis. So then how to speed up your metabolism? So how these metabolisms are regulated, and how these reactions takes place, and there are several mechanisms are involved. This is not a simple. It looks very simple. There is the uptake of the glucose by the liver and the conversion of the glucose into glycogen. All these are it looks very simple, but behind this there are several metabolic reactions and metabolic pathways are involved. So allosteric interaction, covalent modification, adjustment of enzyme levels. Adjustment enzyme levels means synthesis of enzyme levels, and depending upon the need, sometimes there is an increase in increase the need for enzyme biosynthesis. So sometimes these enzymes are shut down. The adjustment of enzyme levels depends on need. And next compartmentation. Next metabolic specialization of the organ. These are the different processes are involved in the intermediate regulation of the intermediate metabolism. Take for example, what's the role of insulin on carb? Again I said endocrine system, nervous system, both works on the metabolisms. Take for example insulin. So how this insulin encourages the glycolysis? So under the influence of insulin, as all of you know, the glycolysis is favored. In glycolysis also, glucokinase enzyme levels are this insulin increase the glucokinase enzyme level, phosphorylkinase enzyme level, and pyruvate kinase level. All these enzyme levels are raises. All these enzyme levels are raises, and glycolysis is glycolysis is speed up under influence of the insulin. How it is speed up means because the activity of glucokinase, phosphorylkinase, and pyruvate kinase, these are the key enzymes. These levels are raises, and again under the influence of the insulin, gluconeogenesis shuts off. How it shuts off? Because the pyruvate carboxylase, phosphoryl pyruvate carboxylase, and glucose 6 phosphate, all these enzyme levels are decreases under the influence of the gluconeogenesis and glycogenesis. And the glycogen synthase enzyme, this is a key enzyme in glycogenesis, and the glycogen synthetase enzyme levels are elevated. The biases of these enzymes levels are elevated, and at the same time, the influence of the insulin, there is no glycogen breakdown. So that's why the glycogen phosphorylase, the key enzyme in glycogenolysis, simply the biases of this enzyme levels are the enzyme levels are decreases, and synthesis of this enzyme levels are decreases under influence of the insulin. Then coming to the HMP shunt pathway. HMP shunt pathway, glucose 6 phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme levels are increases, and lipogenesis, acetyl-CoA carboxylase, acetyl-CoA carboxylase is the key enzyme in lipogenesis, and acetyl-CoA carboxylase levels are rises. And then coming to the lipolysis. So under influence of insulin and during well-fed condition, simply there won't be any lysis, only genesis of the fat takes place. There won't be any lysis. So how will the lysis stops? So again, this hormone insulin inactivates or simply decreases the levels of the hormone sensitive lipase. So to decrease the activity of this hormone sensitive lipase, lipolysis does not occur. Due to increased activity of the acetyl-CoA carboxylase, lipogenesis occurs. Then coming to the ketogenesis, HMP-CoA synthase activities decreases. So there won't be any ketogenesis under influence and in well-fed state. That's why insulin keeps the HMP-CoA synthase in the mute mode. So that's why HMP-CoA synthase levels are simply decreases, the hormone levels are the enzyme levels are decreases, and insulin favors the protein biosynthesis. How it is favors RNA polymerase, which is a very key enzyme in the transcription process, and this RNA polymerase key enzyme in the transcription. So this RNA polymerase levels are elevated, and there won't be any degradation of the protein. So that's why the transaminases and deaminase levels are decreases. The activity of these enzymes decreases of the insulin. Then we are moving to the next stage is the allosteric regulation. So allosteric regulation, because all are enzymes, but some of the enzymes belong with the active side, and some of the enzymes which possess the allosteric side. Such enzymes are known as the allosteric enzymes. So allosteric enzymes, along with the active site of enzymes, I'm repeating once again, not all enzymes are the allosteric enzymes. Some of the enzymes along with the active site of enzyme, and some of the enzymes are possess the allosteric site. Such enzymes are known as the allosteric enzymes. Take for example, now I'm giving an example, acetyl-CoA carboxylase. So acetyl-CoA carboxylase, which is a key enzyme in the lipid metabolism. So in acetyl-CoA carboxylase is a citrate. When a citrate citrate enzyme, citrate, one of the intermediate of the during the formation of the during the one of the intermediate of the glucose metabolism. So here the citrate activates the acetyl-CoA carboxylase. So the acetyl-CoA carboxylase levels are elevates, and it favors the lipid formation, lipogenesis takes place. And when there is a plenty of lipids are there in our body, this palmitoyl CoA is the end product of this glucose metabolism. Here, this palmitoyl CoA inhibits acetyl CoA carboxylase allosterically. So, allosterically, this palmitoyl CoA inhibits the acetyl CoA carboxylase enzyme activity. And this allosteric inhibition, this is called as the citrate is called as the positive modulator. This positive modulator is allosteric activator. Another name for this positive modulator is allosteric activator. The citrate will go on inhibit the acetyl CoA carboxylase. So acetyl CoA carboxylase is one of the the key enzyme in the fatty acid for lipid biosynthesis. So whenever this plenty of fats are there, so there is no need of genesis. So that's why this palmitoyl CoA acts as a inhibitor, allosteric negative modifier or allosteric inhibitor. It will go inhibit the acetyl CoA carboxylase level, and at the same time, this enzyme activity, the acetyl-CoA carboxylase enzyme activity, is by phosphorylation, by addition of the phosphate group. The acetyl-CoA carboxylase is present in the inactive state, and removal of the phosphate group, the acetyl-CoA carboxylase will become active. And this the insulin keeps this acetyl-CoA carboxylase enzyme in the active state by dephosphorylation, by removing. See this closely observe the slide. So acetyl-CoA carboxylase, you can see this left hand side, you can see this P. P means phosphorylation. So on phosphorylation, the enzyme is present in the inactive state, and by dephosphorylation, the enzyme is present in the active form. So the by dephosphorylation, so insulin favors this step with the help of the enzyme phosphatase, and removes the phosphate group, and this acetyl-CoA carboxylase will become active. So this acetyl-CoA carboxylase favors the lipogenesis. So at the same time, the opposite effect under influence of the glucagon epinephrine. So dephosphorylation, phosphorylation takes place, and this epinephrine, phosphorylation takes place, and in phosphorylated state, the enzyme will become inactive. The enzyme will become inactive. So again, this is lipogenesis is controlled by the one is insulin, second one is the allosteric modulators. So take for example, I'm repeating once again, the citrate, one of the intermediate during the formation of the glucose from the palmitoyl CoA. The citrate will go and activate this enzyme, keep this acetyl-CoA carboxylase active in the dephosphorylated acetyl-CoA carboxylase active. At the same time, insulin favors this acetyl-CoA carboxylase level in the dephosphorylated state. The insulin favors this dephosphorylated form, and acetyl-CoA carboxylase will become active. So whereas this palmitoyl CoA will go and inhibit this acetyl-CoA carboxylase, acetyl-CoA carboxylase inhibits this acetyl-CoA carboxylase. At the same time, glucagon epinephrine, it keeps this enzyme in the inactive state by addition of the phosphate group, by phosphorylation, keeps this enzyme in the inactive form. So that's why this in our body, the synthesis degradation does not occur. The best example, glycogenesis and glycogenesis both does not occur. This is nothing but covalent modification. This is example for the covalent modification. So phosphorylation, some of the enzyme will become active, and for dephosphorylation, some of the enzyme will become inactive. So the activity and inactivity of these enzymes are mainly depending upon the addition or removal of the phosphate group. This is nothing but covalent modification. So again, these enzymes activities again works under control of the hormones. Then coming to we are moving to the next mechanism, compartmentation. So compartmentation, because you know that our cells contains different subcellular organelles. So mitochondria, ribosomes, membranes, and Golgi body, endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus. All these are the different subcellular organelles, and the enzyme distribution also. So the metabolic pathways also so distributed in different compartments. Take for example cytoplasm. So cytoplasm mainly the aminotransferases, peptidases, glycolysis, exocyte, HMP shunt pathway, fatty acids, and purine and pyrimidine catabolism. So these are all takes place in cytoplasm, whereas the fatty acid oxidation, amino acid oxidation takes place in the mitochondria. Then coming to the nucleus. In nucleus, the bases of DNA and RNA are present. So, because here the enzymes are distributed only in cytoplasm, whereas fatty acid oxidation, and amino acid oxidation enzymes are only present, exclusively present in mitochondria. Whereas in nucleus contains only DNA, RNA synthesis enzymes are present only in the nucleus. Whereas the endoplasmic reticulum, here the protein biosynthesis, triglyceride and phospholipid synthesis takes from the endoplasmic reticulum, where lysosomes. So whereas lysosomes, lysozyme, and phosphatases and phospholipases are present in liposomes, whereas the Golgi apparatus, glucose 6-phosphatase, and glucosyl and galactosyl transferase. So these enzymes are exclusively present in the apparatus. So here there are certain in the intermediate metabolism. Key junctions are there. One is the glucose 6-phosphatase, pyruvate, and acetyl CoA. These are the key junctions. See, take from the first junction, take from the glucose 6-phosphate. So from glucose, the glucose is phosphorylated and forms the glucose 6-phosphate. From this glucose 6-phosphate, glucose 1-phosphate is forming, fructose 6-phosphate is forming, and 6-phosphogluconate is forming. So one glucose 6-phosphate, glucose 1-phosphate from this glycogen synthesis takes place, and fructose 6-phosphate pyruvate synthesis takes place, and from glucose 6-phosphogluconate, HMP shunt pathway, that is the ribose 5-phosphate formation takes place in pentose HMP shunt pathway. So that's one of the key junctions. See, that's what I'm repeating once again. Key junction in key junctions in the intermediate metabolism is the glucose 6-phosphate, pyruvate, and acetyl CoA. So one of the signals of the glucose 6-phosphate, glycogen formation occurs. From glucose 6-phosphate, it enters into glycolysis, and from here the pyruvate generation takes place. And then coming to the from glucose 6-phosphate, and it enters the HMP shunt pathway, and ribose 5-phosphate takes place. Then coming to the pyruvate. So the pyruvate you are getting either from the glucose 6-phosphate, and this pyruvate to lactate, lactate to pyruvate. These are the interconvertible lactate to pyruvate, and let's say the pyruvate alanine to pyruvate takes place, and ultimately this pyruvate is converted to the acetyl CoA. So this acetyl CoA again diverted for the ketone bodies formation, and this acetyl CoA diverted for cholesterol synthesis, and this acetyl CoA enters into the TCA cycle, and from TCA cycle the electron transport and generation of the ATPs and the CO2 formation, water, all this takes place, and this acetyl CoA is again utilized for the fatty acid synthesis, and once this fatty acid undergoes degradation and beta oxidation, again the acetyl CoA are released, and this is the key junctions, the pyruvate to the lactate, lactate to lactate, and pyruvate alanine, and pyruvate alanine acetyl CoA to fatty acids, and degradation of fatty acid, and again the acetyl CoA are released, and for the reasons of fatty acid, acetyl CoA are required, like this. So these are the key junctions. So we closely observe the acetyl CoA's fate of this acetyl CoA. The acetyl CoA oxidizing TCA cycle and synthesis of fatty acid and elongation of fatty acid chain and the formation of the neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine, and synthesis of cholesterol, synthesis of melatonin, and synthesis of ketone bodies, and for expression in detoxification reactions, acetylation reactions, this acetyl CoA is required. And as all of you know that this acetyl CoA is formed from the carbohydrate metabolism, carbohydrates to pyruvate, pyruvate to acetyl CoA, and pyruvate to acetyl CoA, and oxidation of fatty acid, and oxidation of ethanol, and degradation of ketogenic amino acid, and HMG CoA, and ketolysis, and thioesterification of acetate, and cleavage of citrate, and these are the formation of this acetyl CoA, and the fate of this acetyl CoA is oxidation, synthesis of fatty acid. So this is the overall the formation and the fate of the acetyl CoA. So overall, so all three metabolisms. Okay. So major metabolic fluid is the glycogen, triglycerol, and proteins. So the order of preference is the first glycogen degradation takes place, and the fat next. Once glycogen stores are degraded, and the fat degradation takes place. Once fat and glycogen stores are both are exhausted, next protein degradation takes place. So that's the so that is the integration of this overall, the integration of the three metabolisms, and finally the survival of the body during the well-fed state. Survival of the body during the fasting condition occurs during starvation occurs due to the coordination of the all the at the same time during well-fed state, the storage of the food in the form storage of the biomolecules in the form of glycogen, in the form of triglycerides or in the form of proteins. All these are takes place in the during welfare state. So overall, these are under control of the hormone and nervous system. That's end of the meeting. Okay. So we'll see in some other class. Okay. See them. Bye.